Welcome to this episode's Testing Peers. We're going to carry on with the Ask Me Anything and the questions that you as our listeners sent in a couple of weeks ago. So thank you very much for those. With us tonight, we have all four of us. So I have myself, David, we have Chris.
Aloha.
Simon.
Howdy.
And Russell.
Hello.
And we are delighted to still be sponsored by Saffron QA. Saffron QA are specialists in testing recruitment, and they provide a range of bespoke recruitment services to organisations across the UK. If you want to find more details about Saffron QA, please look at the show notes or visit their website at saffronqa.co.uk. So let's pass over to Chris.
So there's a lot of questions that we've been receiving, and that's been really wonderful. But I wondered if there's any question in particular you've ever been asked or that you dread being asked. So as in, what's the worst kind of question you could be asked? What do you hate being asked by people?
Why did the testers miss this? That's one I always hate, and it's one I always respond to in a very abrupt, almost angry way. That question just grates me every time I hear it. And maybe I've been unlucky in my roles, and it's one I've heard quite a lot, but it's one that definitely winds you up the wrong way.
One thing that frustrates me, and I only ever had it once, not in this current company, was that where is that particular bug in detail? And we're not going to move from here until you actually tell me the answer, when actually you probably don't know and you need to do more investigation. But it's frustrating that people don't always appreciate that you don't have all the answers immediately, especially if you only just found the bug.
Mine's going to be, when's it done? When are we going to ship it? How long will it take? All those sort of themes of questions. Usually about a week into a project of about 6 months worth of work. Love that one.
Yeah, I concur with that one. That's one of those that's when you're 2 days into a project and you get someone going, okay, you've had enough time to understand the project now. Can you give me an estimate of how long it's going to take you? On that?
Mine is basically when somebody who you're not having a regular chat with suddenly says, you got time for a quick chat?
Or your boss.
Or your boss's boss. But yeah.
I always make sure that I never, or try not to ever use the word quick in chat, because it may be a quick question, but it may not necessarily be a quick answer.
Very good.
You've met me and Simon, haven't you? We don't answer things quick.
But speaking of quick, we should probably move right on to the questions we've got. So Simon, you've got the first question for us.
I have, yes. So the first question is from Melissa Fisher. What career options are there for testers? Russell, I'll come to you first.
Everything. The ones that you're kind of best suited towards, I guess, are developer, BAs of this world, project managers, delivery managers, but it could be UX designer, it could be becoming an astronaut, to be quite honest. I do think that, your inquisitive mindset, the ability to kind of problem solve, think around it, deal with multiple stakeholders, gives you a very broad range of skills that are reusable in most fields. Myself, I've been a delivery manager most recently. I don't think there's any doors that are closed to you.
You've covered a lot of career options there are for testers outside of testing. I guess for testers, there's your sort of classic path up through management, but there's also architects and leaders, head of, coaches, CTOs, CEOs. Like you say, the opportunities are endless. You don't have to leave your craft. You can go into high-paid consultancy if you're a specialist. Potentially, I wouldn't know. I think there really are sort of limitless options. If there's things you're interested in, things you can press into.
I think the same, what it seems to be with anything, is the ability to learn. Never lose your ability and your enthusiasm to learn, because whatever career path you choose, you can always make new opportunities for you by trying something new. Like we've done in the other episodes of Make a Tester, we can encourage people that are non-testers into the testing community. And once they're there, you can then make your own path and do whatever you want to. You can go into management, you can go into automation, you can specialize in particular areas, look at security testing or AI, or, there is so many different options. But I think that also, as Russell said, you can have so many hats because you have that broad overview. You can have a lot of coverage. And actually, it's really amazing how many, in my experience, lots of Scrum Masters seem to be testers. And so therefore, because they have that understanding, they have that empathy of an organizational skills and understanding of everything that needs to be done in a particular order and the effect that that has on other things. And I think that sort of speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely a mindset that any good tester has that can apply themselves to a variety of roles. Like David said, I was a Scrum Master in one of my earlier roles. Once I became a tester, it was a role that I enjoyed, and I felt I had the right mindset to be able to make sure the team did the right things at the right times within the Scrum process. I think we've covered all the roles that I would have suggested, but I do think you literally can lend your hand to whatever you feel with it, whether it be in tech, whether it be outside of tech. If you've got the testing mindset, you can apply that anywhere. Should we move on?
Yes. So this one is from Melissa Fisher. And what did you like doing outside of work, apart from obviously recording this podcast
and looking after the kids
and looking after Chris?
Looking after Chris. Yeah, there we go.
looking after Chris. Well, so I mean, in this most recent year, there's not been a lot of scope for doing much outside of the kids. Like my kids have started getting into Nintendo, so we've been doing a little bit of that. I like cooking with the children, playing on the trampoline. As far as time for myself and hobbies are concerned, there's not been a lot of room for that. I kind of felt like my mind's been quite busy, but pre-pandemic, certainly I was playing tennis every week. I was still attempting to play the rhythm guitar badly. In fact, I was successfully playing the rhythm guitar badly. And I would try and read. But in this last year, my mind has kind of been a bit jammed. So the reading and the sort of creative stuff hasn't been so easy to come by. So the sort of more immediate sort of comfort things like TV, pizza, chocolate, children, games, those sorts of things have been my go-to. YouTube, those sorts of things. It's not very exciting. I'm really quite boring.
Yeah, before the pandemic, I was still semi-regularly going to Peterborough night football matches. I was playing tennis. I need to play you someday, Chris. Sure, we could do that as a charity event.
I mean, I'm rubbish. It'd be very quick.
I'm rusty now. I used to run regularly, which actually the pandemic has killed my motivation for doing that, partly because I'm sat at a desk all day and I don't really feel like motivating myself to run. But now it's mainly focused around doing activities with the kids, whether it be trampolining, walking. Well, mostly walking at the moment, but yeah, it will get back to doing fun things with the kids again. That's the main focus.
From my perspective, pre-pandemic, because I think we're all referencing that a little bit, it was probably getting involved in meetups quite heavily, conferencing, testing, related post-work activities, mixed in with gaming, as I think Chris has said. After pandemic, so after, was it March the 23rd or something? It was doing very little, cycling, walking, exercising a little bit more. And now it's looking after a dog. That's kind of more of a hobby.
Yeah, I would concur with that one.
For me, it's been the same both before and after the lockdown. It's really running, trying to keep myself fit and outside. And that's not always been easy to motivate myself in lockdown, but I've managed to maintain most of it all the time.
You're looking very trim, David. It's good.
You.
So move on to the next question. So this is from Ben, full snack tester Dowen. God, sorry, Ben. Saying your name. It's tricky. It looks like it should be Dowen. Maybe you should just change it. So what is the best bug you found? Now, we covered this a little bit in our very first episode, but maybe you've thought of another bug that you found that was kind of fun. I was demoing a tool quite recently, and there was a cue card that when you move the cue card around on the screen, everything went a little bit crazy. It was quite a fun little graphical glitch. It looked like it was a bit of a disco. That's quite a fun bug recently. What about you, Simon?
I was thinking of this. It's not work-related one, but just playing with. It's actually on Mario Kart. I found a very, very interesting bug on one of the. It must have been a few weeks ago now, but where the car would freeze, but the whole background and stuff was still moving. It seemed to be partly to do with the turning the phone landscape wide to see the race, and that seems to be quite interesting. I don't get to find bugs very often at the moment. I think the one I recalled back in the first episode was one of my early ones to do with different OSs.
As always, I can't remember any bug I found. I've definitely seen bugs, definitely seen them. But I can't recall.
I was going to say, don't ask me either. I can't remember any apart from the one that I said before. So sorry about that.
We are scarred by bugs. That's what it is.
So what we're saying is tune in to episode 1 of the Testing Peers podcast if you want to find out more.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. This one is from Anonymous, also known as Chris Armstrong. What was your favorite episode to record?
I'll answer this one first. I mentioned it before, but I think I mentioned it in the last AMA. Honestly, the most fun I had was recording the Christmas episode when we had our friends in. We did some risk storming. We had a bit of Christmas fun. It was wonderful fun.
I'd agree that was probably one of the most favorite to record. More people, more fun, more banter. Not just you three people.
The one we did at Eurostar when we had some live feedback, there was a live chat feed going on. There was a Q&A. That was a lot of fun as well.
I think lots of them, I wouldn't necessarily pick out one as a favourite. I enjoy most of them because I learn something in every one. It's always fun chatting on a podcast and giving something back to the community. So I don't really necessarily have a favourite. I mean, it was fun with having other people on, something different. But yeah, I just enjoy everyone.
The whole time we were recording it, David, you were thinking about the stresses of editing it, though, weren't you?
Yeah, and then I listened to it, and it's even worse than I thought. So yeah, that's brilliant.
I would say, from a personal project perspective, recording the Maker Tester one was a highlight for me. But I think, as David just alluded to, every episode we record, it's another evening with friends, talking rubbish, recording it, and actually getting something, some kind of socializing out of it that doesn't involve kids or dogs, which is quite nice.
Or running.
Melissa again. How do you think testing will change over the next 20 years?
Well, that's 10 years further than our 2030
Yeah,
episode.
so we did a 2030
goodness.
episode, didn't we? So maybe we need to do a 2040 episode on the back of that as well. How do we think it will change in a further 10 years?
Well, we can be even more incorrect than Back to the Future.
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
to in there, the second film.
Can I jump in first with that one?
Yes.
I still maintain what I said in that 2030 episode, that we will still be going around the same loops of automation, manual testing, check, test, whatever. The same discussions we'll be having, but in the background, we'll all be working on the latest technologies and latest stuff and still finding defects and still proving our worth as a trade. There'll still be the arguments that testers are not needed anymore. All the developers can do it. But again and again, they'll still be proven that we're needed in certain scenarios. So yeah, I don't know. I think the world will evolve, the world will move on, but the role will still be there in some form, and we'll be doing similar things to what we're doing now.
I would agree with that, because I think at the end of the day, software is written by humans, and so therefore, in the future, it might not necessarily always be written by humans, but there will always be a human element in it. So there will be mistakes built in. There will need to be some sort of testing as part of that, and then therefore the maintenance of those tests. So yeah,
I'm going to say in 20 years' time, there'll be a lot more AI within testing, and there'll be a lot more machine learning within testing. But as you said, that will not get rid of testers. It will just change some of the skills and the knowledge and the learning they'll have to do to set these systems up in many ways, and to kind of edit them, maintain them. And I think there'll be a movement away, possibly from Agile. That'll be controversial. I think it'll still be a thing, but I think it may be less the big thing. And I think DevOps might be past its peak, and they might be moving on to something else like continuous flow models or some other things. But in 20 years' time, they'll still all be around. It's like waterfall is still around now. It won't go out the window. But I think we might be having another conversation over another conceptual model.
There'll be a bunch of new thought leaders. There'll be a bunch of new models. I think we won't see the days of having huge testing houses or huge blocks of testing teams, but I imagine that testing will still exist and the specialists will still be required, but in what form, I couldn't say. I mean, I was talking about it with a colleague today and sort of saying that, sure, AI and things like that and automation should get better and more efficient and things. So your sort of requirement for specialism, for analysis, for lots of the other parts of software quality on the road, that may be where we go. Who knows? Hopefully, I'll still be a part of it. Let's hope so. Maybe, trying to smash out this podcast still.
I do think just what you said about no test houses may be a thing of the past. I do think test consultancy, though, and I say that sitting here with 3 consultants, I do think that's probably going to grow. I think there'll be more need for those specialist consultants and coaches that come into organizations and help them improve their testing processes without bringing a horde of testers along into the environment, but actually just helping the existing organization improve their quality practices.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Definitely, I think there'll be a lot more of that assistance in testing versus kind of all the expertise being in-house.
Okay, next question. And actually, I'm going to go out on a limb here and combine a few. So Melissa Fisher says, what's your favorite snack? But also we have Ben Dowen, who says, what's your third favorite snack? And I'm going to add to that because I feel sorry for the second. Let's include the second favorite snack as well.
So what you're saying is ranking our top 3 snacks?
Yes.
And we're combining sweet and savoury at this point, I assume.
Yes.
But snack has to be a food, not a drink.
Yes.
Right, okay, fine. Need to get the context right. I'll go first because I'm quite quick on these sorts of things typically. Right, number 1, pizza. I know it's a meal, but it's also a snack. Don't, fight me. Number 2, dairy milk, slab of chocolate, simple, plain, delicious, and delightful. And then number 3 probably is the chocolate hobnobs.
You didn't mention Jaffa cakes.
No, because Jaffa cakes are like a pudding, a delicacy. They're not a snack. Like just different level. Like when you eat 30 at a time, I don't think that counts as a snack.
Yeah, that's a meal,
That's
to be fair.
Yeah.
So Simon.
I like my chocolate. I'm not going to work out the top 3 because it's too difficult to decide. Dairy milk of some kind, especially the one with the dime bar bits in. I love that. That's probably my favourite chocolate bar. The dairy milk with the dime bar bits in. That's nice. I like my crisps, particularly really salt and vinegar flavoured ones. The Co-op's own salt and vinegar crisps are probably the best salt and vinegar crisps I've tasted. So they're in there. And then third one, I like my brie cheese. I do sometimes take a nibble of a piece of cheese without anything else with it. So I guess that's a snack. But I try to limit that because it's not very good for me, apparently, even though chocolate and crisps are not good either.
So for me, I was going to go down a cheese route as well. I think that my number 1 would be either Stilton or brie or camembert or something, especially if they're cooked or whatever. That would be my number 1. Number 2 would be chocolate buttons, like chocolate buttons.
The large ones or the normal size ones?
The normal ones are too small these days, surely.
Yeah, they're too small. As an adult, they're too small. So yeah, always the big ones. And then my third one, it would be dry, a bowl of dried shreddies.
Dried shreddies?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, there you go. That's the nugget of thing I've learned tonight.
So from my perspective, it's probably crisps to start with. And I probably have to put Pringles, was it sour cream? That's probably the top because it's addictive. After that, it's chocolate. There's a particular chocolate from Waitrose called number 1. I think it's their own brand. 65% cocoa, and it's the best chocolate ever. And then after that, it's kind of the hobnobs. I can't deny a good hobnob.
Get in for the hobnobs.
Now I want to snack.
Yeah, I'm hungry now.
Well, good news is, on the topic of snacks, Melissa's absolutely smashing it with the questions. What is your favourite movie, book, or band? But I think that's a bit of a get out clause for everyone. So I want to know what your favourite movie, book, and band are.
I don't know one thing that answers all 3 at once. Sorry.
Yeah.
It can be 3 separate things. There's commas. Just go with it. Imagine the Oxford comma exists in this question.
I love my music. I probably can't narrow it down to one band, but my top 3 bands would be Arctic Monkeys, Bowling for Soup, and probably Skinny Lister at the moment. And they're the 3. I probably wouldn't be able to tell you my favourite one out of those 3. Film, I've always loved The Shawshank Redemption. But on the opposite end of the scale, I also absolutely love the Austin Powers movies. And books, I can't really say anything else than the Game of Thrones books. I've read them a couple of times now. I do enjoy those fantasy style books.
Film-wise, it would be Wonderful Life. I think it's a classic and really love it. Music, I'm torn between Muse or Queen. If I was kind of wanting to chill out a bit more, it'd be more like To Be Queen, just relax. If I was wanting to kind of listen intently, I'd probably go more of a Muse. And book-wise, it'd be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
So for me, I'm with Simon that Shawshank Redemption is my favourite film.
Good film.
Book, I would have to just... I'm not a massive reader, so I would have to say one of the Harry Potters as much because I was a fan when they first came out, and I've read them so many times to the kids. So I can't pick which one, but they're all quite good. And band, just like a throwback to my sort of teenage times would have to be the Eurythmics, and I still listen to them today.
Annie Lennox, fantastic. My favourite movie is Back to the Future, and I don't care that it's wrong and it's out of date. It's wonderful, and it takes me to a wonderful place. Happy memories. I love it very much. I even did a party for the anniversary in 2015. So my favourite band probably is Linkin Park. I loved them from the nu metal days to when they went a bit sort of like techie DJ magic, to all the other stuff. I've always enjoyed their stuff. Favourite book is probably Sophie's World by Justine Gorder. I quoted it, really long quote in the one when I did the Lego thing that everyone really enjoyed.
That was Make a Tester, wasn't it?
Is that the quote that was longer than our episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. You are welcome. You don't need to buy the book anymore.
Another one by Melissa. If you could choose an alternative career, what would it be? And I'm going to start with Simon.
I think we briefly talked about this on a previous episode as well. I'd still have an interest in it, and I would be tempted, if I fancied a big career change, I would still look at it. But I really enjoyed the idea of going into computer forensics and working on sort of crime scene computery stuff. That was what I was set to do after university, and I think that would be something I would choose to do if I had the opportunity to.
For me, I would go back to, again, my roots, and as an ex-teacher, I would probably want to go into training and help educate and coach future people in something.
Future people sound exciting. I think if I think ultimately about what sort of thing, like if it was nothing to do with software, I quite like the idea of, I quite like sort of thinking of big pictures and finding patterns and telling stories and things. So like storyboarding things that could lead to books or programs or movies and stuff. I think I'd really enjoy doing it. I'm pretty sure no one would ever hire me to do it, but I think I'd get a really big kick out of telling a story in a really nice cohesive flow way. I mean, everyone's seen how the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League actually was a lot better. So maybe these people have got a smart idea, not the ones who are chopping other people's work up.
If I could choose, I'd probably want to become a racing driver or something like that, drive cars fast. But realistically, I would lack the talent to necessarily do that. So I probably would go into kind of engineering, as in building engineering, probably, or into data science. I'm always interested in numbers and stats and maths and things like that. I'm a bit of a weirdo. Thus the engineering side of things as well.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to the next one from Steve D.
Steve Denman.
I believe you worked with him, Chris. Is that right?
I did.
Okay. Any tips for maintainability of automated test suites? And this is an area we've not covered on the podcast yet, have we? Test automation. But Russell, I'll come to you first.
Thanks. Keep it simple. Keep it small so that tests aren't large, trying to test everything. Kind of the two things I would do. Try and use the same sort of techniques that your developers and others do to create maintainable code. So linting and other styling tools, for example. Having code reviews. Good code hygiene is kind of the first thing I would stick to. Also, think, is this test even needed? Because more often than not, there's a good chunk of tests that are actually there because someone doesn't trust something else somewhere. And I'd try and build that trust up. And then you've got a lot easier job maintaining anything. It's a hidden problem in that sense. So that's what I would probably start with those.
I would go with comment, document, naming convention, file structure, reusability, and transparency.
Very succinct.
I would say the same, but yeah, just to echo Russell's point and Chris's, comments certainly do help, and also keeping it simple, keeping it small, and actually don't build it far too big or too fast or have too many people. Have a structure and make sure it's planned beforehand, and also any future changes to make sure it's planned and in the same way that it was previously written.
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to what Russell said at the start there about the same coding standards for the test code as you do for the development code. I would say never do your automation in isolation. Where possible, pair review as much as possible, communicate, whiteboard sessions with people, and make sure everyone's agreeing on the format, because you don't want to be a single point of failure. You're the only person that can maintain the tests. So a shared collaborative approach will definitely be one step closer to making sure it's maintainable.
Yeah, just remind me of something. Don't get the brightest person in the room to build it. Build it for the lower common denominators, not the top common denominators. It's a problem I've seen, which means only the genius in the room can often fix it, maintain it, or do any work on it. That won't work across teams. You need to make it so that just about anyone can pick it up and deal with it.
Yeah, automated testing is not a time for showboating.
So, Mirza Sisic, any advice for testing in a DDD project? Russell, do you want to tell us what DDD is?
I'm assuming domain-driven design, but it could have multiple different meanings. Communication. I think is what I would argue. If you're testing in that world, you need to have a very common library, a common language. That's what it's all built around. So if you don't have that, you've got problems. So put a lot more emphasis in making sure that the domain is clear, understood, articulated. You've got models, designs, drawings, pictures, post-it notes. You name it whatever you want, help you understand that domain so that actually you can share it and have a common understanding. You can whiteboard it, share it, make sure you double check it so that everyone is on the same page.
Doesn't look like anyone needs to add anything else on. So that's very comprehensive.
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah, well, Russell, your question.
This is another one from Ben, full snack tester. What podcast do you listen to?
I don't listen to any anymore. When I was listening to podcasts all the time, when I was commuting, remember those days? I was listening to A/B testing. I was listening to a bunch of retrospective pro wrestling podcasts. I listened to the totally football podcasts, a whole wealth of anything I found interesting. There was one called Bunny Ears by Macaulay Culkin. I was collecting podcasts. I was having a great time. My backlog's terrifying now, and I don't want to look at it.
I'm trying to keep on top of my backlog. I've got it down to about 25. I listen to probably a podcast episode of something a day. My list at the moment includes things like Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe's Lockdown Parenting Hell, OllieCast, A/B Testing, Dadville, Humans Plus Tech, Potential in People, The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast, Quality Sense podcast. So yeah, there's a mixture of testing, tech, football, comedy, parenting, all that kind of fun stuff.
I don't listen to any. It's very simple.
The only one I listen to on a dog walk is the School of Calisthenics, easy to say, calisthenics, about body weight training, although they've changed it to body weight and movement.
So you can see who the podcast listener is here then. I wonder who came up with the idea of doing a podcast. Sadee's question. So Sadee is someone that both Chris and myself worked with. It's a topical one. You did say, ask us anything. What steps can we take in our organizations to create empathetic communities that embrace all genders, race, age, etc.? What a question.
This almost sounds like a podcast in itself.
It does, doesn't it?
Probably got some high level things. You're in a diversity and inclusion thing, Simon. Have you got a place to start on that?
I think it comes down to the same things that we've mentioned on a few other things. Well, Russell mentioned it for the DDD stuff. It all comes down to open communication and transparency and making an environment that everyone feels included. That is easier said than done. There's a lot of biases, naturally, the way we do things and the way we think about things. And it's trying to reduce those biases by having the information around to allow you to understand more about other people. I can only go with the examples of the stuff that I push and I work with, which is the neurodiversity side. And to make an environment more inclusive for neurodiversity, it's making sure people are aware of what the conditions involve and what people may need. And that comes down to an individual perspective of everyone needs something different. And you need to be open enough to ask people, what do you need? How can I help? Are you okay? Is a question that, we need to be asking each other more. And that will only help make people feel included.
I think for me, there are two things. Firstly, we shouldn't always take it on ourselves to try and change the world and not change our organizations. What we can do is support those people that are changing things in particular areas. We ourselves as leaders can obviously, as we covered in writing CVs and whatever, make our CVs and then employ people based on their ability to do their job or to add to the culture rather than fit in with the culture. It isn't a tick box exercise for those particular things. What it is finding the best people for that job and what they can add. And that's what I would say is, and I know we do have our biases, but try and leave them at the door and look for the things that are important to you, not necessarily looking at other things.
I would echo the bias thing. Try and make your unconscious bias conscious, so bring them to life, talk about them, get training on them, make them awareness of them so they can be addressed, because it slips into the smallest of things without realizing it. Make a culture, live the culture by accepting the fact that we can all make mistakes, say the wrong word, occasionally offend somebody, be open to listening to that person and, hearing perspectives of what it means to them and making changes because of it. If people see you adapt because of feedback, you start to build that culture.
I agree with everything everybody said. I attended a Eurostar Huddle Agile Deep Dive thing recently, and Selena Delesi was talking about a lot of being inclusive and empathetic is about allowing people to be in an open and safe and secure environment and to empower people to care. It's all right to care about things. She quoted Jerry Weinberg saying, "You've got permission to care about people. You've got permission to care about these things and to fight for them." And to have that sort of environment in which you work for, yes, we need to be educated, but you need to know that things that are important to you should be things that your colleagues should know, and it should be all right for you to talk about. And it is about respect. It is about openness and communication and collaboration, all these good things. And blame cultures and things like that suppress that. Looking for copy and paste of other things can suppress that. Focusing on uniqueness of people and actually celebrating that and embracing the best of ourselves in each other. Those are kind of the key highlights from that. And it really resonated with me. So yes, that's kind of the last of our questions.
Thank you everyone for their input. We've probably got a few additional topics there that we can add to our Trello board and refine and hopefully get around to recording. So again, thank you for that. We've really enjoyed having this, and anyone that got their stickers, we hope you're enjoying them. Please share on the socials so that we get a bit of love on there as well. And speaking of the socials, as always, you can reach out to us at Testing Peers on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or contact us at testingpeers.com. If you feel like you want to support us, we do have a Patreon, and we have a small set of tiers on there. So it's patreon.com/testingpeers. Other than that, can only thank you for listening, and thank you Saffron QA for continuing to sponsor us, and we'll speak to you again soon. For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.